Okay, and welcome to 4,000 Weeks, the weekly audio dispatch of 4kweeks.com. I am Spencer, your intrepid host on this discussion of what it means to walk through this world as a human being with a finite amount of minutes on this earth. It is week 13 of 2025. The first thing that I owe you is the dad joke of the week, and I have forgotten the setup. Hold on, I'll get it. I'll figure it out. I'll remember what it is. It's in my head. I could just scroll down, but gosh, I can't remember. Hold on. Let's see if I can get. Oh, I can get down there really easy. I'm using this teleprompter. This is all new, so I don't know. You haven't been able to see the videos yet, but I'm trying to do a better job of looking into the camera. So I got this teleprompter so that we could record these videos for YouTube and then also podcasts for all the podcast platforms. Anyway, what do you call a pig that practices karate? We will get to the setup at the end. Meanwhile, it is time to dive in. We have safely passed, in case you were worried, the Ides of March so far this year. So, all you Caesars out there at 2 Brute, it is time for you to walk over to your 4K Weeks poster and fill in another square. Are you done? Okay, so that was a little clunky. I'm recording the audio for this podcast and the video for this podcast at the same time, and that's new to me. And so I'm struggling a little bit, but I'll get there. I don't know if you've listened to the first version of this podcast, it was way clunkier than it has gotten. So I will get better. I promise. This week, week 13 of 2025, this week's email seems to have been all about my back. It was bothering me this week. Who knows why? I don't know what I did. I know what happened, but there was no instance. But that meant that a few times this week, instead of barreling through my agenda like an unbridled force of nature, which is the way I typically imagine myself barreling through my agenda, I needed to lay on the ground for a few minutes. I don't know if you've ever had low back pain, but sometimes, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon after standing up all day, you're just like, I just need to be on the ground for a minute. And so each time that I did that, this is probably 3 or 4 times this week that I did that, our wonderful 100-pound lovable mutt, Walter, well, he's lovable if you're in our home, but if you come to our door, he seems like he's a gigantic beast that's going to devour you. But anyway, Walter came over while I was laying on the ground, laid nearly on top of me. He kind of like does this thing where he half lays on you and then slides off, and then rested his head on my chest. And when he does that, sometimes I'm just like, what could be more important in this world than laying here with this beast who has so much trust in me that he'll just lay on my chest? I mean, it's weird because I am a modern human, and that means my default, I'm a modern Western world human being, which means my default is progress, work, go. Are you being productive? Why not? What are you doing? If you're gonna rest, then you gotta rest. It's like everything has to be done with intention, and even the relaxation is progress oriented, right? Which is insane. And I also have a fairly healthy dose of compulsive Puritan work ethic, which is common with a lot of people in the U.S. And we could go down the road of the soapbox of it's kill or be killed in the United States. Like either you make enough to make it happen or you don't. And so it's like a fire lit under your butt here. But no matter what I get done in this life, no matter how much progress I make, it's still a limited time only deal, right? There's no getting to the finish line so that you get bonus rounds. There's only getting to the finish line. And so, sometimes when I think about that and I'm laying on the floor worried that I'm not getting anything done right now because I'm laying on the floor, and Walter comes over and lays down with me, I'm just like, well, what's more life than laying here with this beast, this spectacular, wonderful beast who loves me? So I guess just lay down with the dog and just enjoy that minute. I don't know. It's hard for me. It's really hard for me. It's like one of the things I am least good at is sitting still with no agenda. Anyway, if you have a minute, you're feeling generous, like I said earlier, subscribe to the podcast, like it, review it. If you get the email, send it to a friend. That little tiny gesture, just you showing that this is valuable enough to you to share with someone that you like and trust, is like the greatest thing in the entire world for me. It's such a low cost thing for you, and it has such a high return for me that it is totally worth doing. All right, week 13 of 2006. I don't know, that's not how you say it. 2006. Akira Kurosawa, Japanese filmmaker, won the Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement. He is considered one of the best directors of all time. He made 30 films in more than 50 years of his career. He was 4,696 weeks old, or 90.07 years. And anytime I hear Kurosawa's name, I'm reminded of the 1990s hit by the Barenaked Ladies, One Week, where in the middle of the song, one of the singers says, like Kurosawa, I make mad films. Okay, I don't make films, but if I did, they'd have a samurai. That's just the thing that, sometimes when you hear something pops into your head, and every single time that pops into my head. All right, the quote of the week. The quote of the week this week is from Buddha. Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your unguarded thoughts. Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts. And this was specifically and especially relevant to me this week as I struggled with my back issue, which is just a momentary thing, but it does have a chronic history with me. And so, I mean, I would say this week that my back and my unguarded thoughts are about even on the harm they have done me, but the pain of my back and then my thoughts about the pain in my back. But at least my back is honest with me, right? At least the discomfort and pain I'm feeling in my back is accurate feedback on an actual issue. My mind, however, is very sneaky, and it's trying all sorts of ways to get me to feel sorry for myself, to create problems that don't exist, to predict the future, to relitigate the past, to let me off the hook from doing the work that I need to do that will solve this problem anyway. My mind is dishonest with me, and it is creating problems and telling me falsehoods all the time. And also, sidebar, what is it that I have warring voices inside my head? Which one of them is me? Right? And as far as I know, like, we all have warring voices in our heads, right? You have a voice in your head that's telling you to do the healthy thing, and a voice in your head that's telling you to eat the donut. How do you have two voices in your head? Which one of them is you? It's kind of insane. But make sure that you listen to and then also empower the voice in your head that is encouraging you towards growth, meaning, and intention. And just tell the voice in your head that's like, oh my God, everything's wrong and it's going to be terrible. Tell it to shut up over and over and over again until it gets smaller and smaller. So the unguarded voices in your head hurt you much more than any enemy could. What I have consumed this week. I started a new podcast this week. A friend of mine has been telling me about it for a while. It's called Founders, and my friend is the owner of a small business. What does small business mean? And he's been listening to this podcast a lot. And it's funny that he's like, oh, you should listen to it. All these founders have terrible, terrible childhoods that drive them to success, like the founder of NVIDIA looking in the mirror and telling himself that he is worthless all the time or whatever. It's just like, it was really funny for him to tell me I should listen to this podcast, and then also describing that all of these founders of billion-dollar companies are broken people who are trying very hard to fill the hole in their soul with unbridled capitalism. However, I did start listening to it. I listened to episode 380, which was titled 400 Pages of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger in Their Own Words. So this podcast, this guy basically reads biographies. I think there might even be some interviews in there, but he reads biographies of successful people and then talks about them and weaves in a whole bunch of other knowledge that he has with regard to like all of these. Well, I mean, there's 380. He's read, he's done 380 episodes, almost 400 episodes about successful people. So there's a lot of real nuggets in there. And this one was amazing. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, sage wisdom. I just think there was so much value in here that I started to write things down so that I wouldn't forget them. You know how if you listen to a podcast and you're like, oh, that's a really insightful nugget, and then 20 minutes later you don't even really remember what it was. So so it's a good podcast, number 380 of that podcast. But then this is the other thing I wanted to tell you that I did with that podcast, right? So the guy's it's just a dude who started this podcast, who loved to read biographies and wanted to talk about them. And if you listen to episode 380 or one of the most current episodes, he is so good at it. He is, weaving in these threads. He is holding all the threads together. He's telling you things that he knows that aren't about this. He's saying, oh, this thing relates to this thing and this thing. And it's just so good. It's just really dense with thoughtful, intelligent content about how to succeed. And so I was like, I want to listen to one about creativity. And so I just happened to scroll down. And I got all the way to the bottom. And one of the first ones was about Walt Disney. And I was like, oh, that's good. I'll listen to that. It is an insane difference, his first episode to his 380th episode. He has improved so much. And I'll say the first ones are absolutely listenable, but it's clearly a person who is starting something and finding his feet. And I just think that any one of you who is thinking of starting something but doesn't think you're good enough, or there's that great not Ezra Klein, what's the guy, This American Life guy, I can't remember his name right now. I can't remember his name. The guy who started This American Life has this great little video about when you start something new, and it's something he wishes people had told him, where he says, at the beginning, you have really good taste, but the product that you're putting out doesn't match the quality that you understand. It doesn't, you've got great taste, but you don't have great skills yet. And the thing he says he wishes people had told him is that you have to push through. You have to do so much work that eventually your work product matches the quality of your taste. And so anybody who thinks that they are not good enough to start their thing, right? I want to do X, Y, and Z, but every time I try it, it sounds like crap, and I want to get better, but I don't want to put anything on record until I get better. Horseshit, pardon my French. Start something. Because the thing that this dude needed to do in order to create this amazing podcast about founders is to start, and to be okay having his first few episodes not be as good as he wanted them to be, because he had to do that to get through to number 380. And frankly, anyone who would listen to his first podcast and give him crap about how bad it would be, and not notice the vast improvement that he made and how now it's a professional podcast that is amazing, doesn't even deserve a platform to speak on, because they're missing the fundamental truth of humanity, which is the fundamental truth of humanity. What am I talking about? A fundamental truth of people who do things is that when you start it, you're not going to be as good at it as you want. And then here's the tricky part. I guarantee you that the guy who does this podcast, has more things now that he notices he wants to improve than he did back then, because as you get better, you notice more things, right? The bar always moves. So if you're thinking of starting something and you need a little bit of confidence, go listen to the latest podcast of Founders, and then go listen to the first podcast of Founders, and then start your thing. So that's the first thing that I did, or that I was listening to today, or this week. Words hard. Sorry. I will be honest with you. I am trying this new method. I'm thick in the middle of exactly what I was explaining. I'm trying this new method of not hitting microphones, of looking at the teleprompter and managing the video recording and managing the audio recording at the same time. That's why there's actually 2 microphones here, so I don't have to do it twice. And it's throwing me off a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get better at it. I also am still thick in the middle of the Stormlight Archives, book 4. It is so good, by Brandon Sanderson. You should read it if you like fantasy fiction. And also, if you know Brandon Sanderson, I know that's a long shot. If you know him, I want to send him a gift. So shoot me an email if you know him. Who knows? There's 20,000 of you out there, so maybe somebody knows him. Okay, let's see, little Instagram nuggets. Oh, interestingly enough, you guys may know I have a 1968 Jeepster Commando, and I have a 1971 Hearst Edition Jeepster Commando. Well, the 68 I drove to basketball this last week, and it stall. It wouldn't start afterwards, and I had to tow it back home. It's running now, actually. But that got me thinking, you know what? I should get on the electric conversion of this Jeep, which I have a motor for it and everything. I just like driving it, and I don't want to take it apart for 4 months or 6 months or 8 months or 10 months while I'm doing that. But I watched a few videos on do-it-yourself electric Jeep conversions, and they're linked in the email. Super interesting. God, people are so skilled and creative. And I mean, the YouTube is full of, I think I just said the YouTube. The YouTubes are full of people doing awesome projects and recording them for you. And I don't know if you've ever tried to record a project, but it's like 3 times as much work to do a project and record it so people can watch the videos of it than it is to just do the project. So kudos to all you people documenting awesome stuff so that we can see it. Let's see. Oh, there's a link. The last link in there, things I consumed, is a delightful little clip by Simon Sinek about doing hard things. And so you should go to the email and click that link if that's interesting to you. And now we have arrived 16 minutes in. It's hard to believe I've been talking for 16 minutes. I'm actually dangerously good at talking for huge blocks of time. It's like, oh, it's been 3 hours. Sorry. 16 minutes in, and we are finally to what I am thinking about this week. And so back to my back and the struggle to struggle well. And actually, I'm doing pretty well today. If you're watching this video, you may think, oh, he's standing up fine. And my back is definitely on the road to recovery over this week. But I think that this has kind of made me be able to really focus on the struggle to struggle well. And what does that mean? What do I mean when I say to struggle well? I'll just give you a little backstory real quick. When I was 18, I herniated a disc in my back. I was wrestling with a friend of mine who ended up playing on the offensive line at Drake University. He was like 300 pounds. And I tried to throw him over my back, herniated a disc. Ouchie. And every decade or so, it seems to rear its ugly head and becomes like a blinking red light on a blinking red check engine light on the dashboard of my life, right? And the last time it got really bad was Thanksgiving 2019, before the pandemic. And it got so bad, and I mean like, sciatic nerve pain radiating down my leg, uncontrollable back and hamstring and calf and foot spasms. Like literally, I couldn't even turn the shower on. My wife had to turn the shower on when I would wake up in the middle of the night with this spasm. I mean, it was insane. And I was only sleeping like 2 hours a night for like 3 months just because it hurt so bad. And I was taking muscle relaxers and nerve gabapentin, which is like a nerve pain suppressant. It's kind of insane. It was totally miserable. I did, however, get caught up on Game of Thrones because I wasn't sleeping at all. So I was just watching HBO. Anyway, after struggling with that for 3 months, and actually in hindsight, I'm like, why did you struggle with that for 3 months? It's kind of insane, the things human beings can just tolerate as normal. Anyway, I had an epidural steroid injection in my spine literally 2 days before the COVID lockdowns in March of 2020. Ryan and I look back and think how lucky it was that happened then, because it would have been the lockdown would have been even more miserable had I been in agony. So I had the epidural steroid injection in my spine, and that injection calmed the inflamed nerves in my back enough that I had like this window to get stronger, to get my core stronger. And I was determined. I was like, I went from so miserable to kind of able to enjoy normal life that I was like, this is never going to happen again. And so I, started investing a whole bunch of time and energy and treasure, also in the form of money, in finding a physical therapist and doing all sorts of things to make sure it never happened again. And since then, with the help of my trainer and my physical therapist is Restore Thrive. You can see their videos online and stuff. And this is a little sidebar. Find people who love what they do and stay on the cutting edge of it and pay them what they are asking for their services. It is one of the best investments, because Tim at Restore Thrive is like, the thing he loves to do is figure out what the body is doing and why it's doing this. And that is so much more different. That is so much different than a physical therapist who graduated 20 years ago and just wants to go out and have a fun time with their friends tonight. And okay, here are the exercises that they told me 20 years ago that a person with a sore back should do. It's not even the same science. And so that's a little sidebar. In areas that are important to you, find people who eat sleep, breathe the thing that you need to know about, and pay them what they're asking. So anyway, since then, with Bryce, my trainer, and Tim, my physical therapist, help, I have totally transformed my fitness. I am strong in big ways. I am strong in small ways. I see my trainer weekly. He programs all my exercises for the week. I see my physical therapist almost every month. We address any weak points as they're discovered. Sometimes you do a little exercise and you're like, oh, wow, I can't do, I can't balance on one foot while holding a plate up in the air with my left hand, blah, 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 whatever. We work on all that stuff. I am incredibly active. I am incredibly durable. I play basketball twice a week with 20-year-olds, and I'm the one that's hustling harder than them and diving after loose balls and stuff. On and on and on and on. I have prepared. I have laid the groundwork for my back never to hurt again. But here's the thing. I can only control what I can control. And what I can control is dwarfed by what I cannot control. And your body is incredibly complex. And 2 weeks ago, after a day of basketball in the morning, I went on a long walk with my wife. And when we got home, I was like, oh, my back kind of hurts. And over the course of the next 48 hours, it really tightened up to where like rolling over in bed was kind of like, I had to be real careful about that, stability wise. But, now I have all these tools. And so for the next week, I made sure I did all my exercises and I really kind of focused on it. And it seemed like it was getting better. But then after basketball on Tuesday of this week, it really, really locked up. And all of the strength work that I've done has helped, right? It's important to remember that you do have some level of control over things, even things that you cannot totally control, right? It's much better to be wicked strong and have an issue with your lower back than it is to be weak and have an issue with your lower back. And William Irvine, in his book, A Guide to the Good Life, calls this the trichotomy of control, because in Stoicism, there's the dichotomy of control, which are things you cannot control and things you can control. But the trichotomy of control is like things you can't control, things over which you have some control, and things you can control. So like a tennis match, winning a tennis match is the example he uses in the book, is something that you have a little bit of control over, right? So you can really prepare for the tennis match. You can practice and practice and practice and practice, but that doesn't mean you're going to win the tennis match. It does give you maybe a better opportunity to win. But so those are the middle ground, the things over which you have some, but not total control. But by far, the biggest and most difficult struggle this week has been the struggle that's going on in my head. I spent so much time and energy trying to get my back, totally bulletproofed, that now there's like this woe is me voice in my head that's like, I don't want to have a sore back. It's not fair. I've done all the hard work. Is this it forever? What is it going to be like this? What's it going to be like when I'm 80? Will I ever be able to be rid of this curse of the occasional painful back? And what about all the work I have to do? I can't have a sore back. I've got all this stuff I have to do. It's spring. I got to clean up the backyard. I got to take all this trash to the dumpster. If I can't work, who am I? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like my mind is doing all this future traveling, all this past mining, all of this woe is meism, and on and on and on and on. And like all of this crap that my own mind is spewing out, and I'd like to think that I'm fairly resilient in this way too, right? I at least understand that that's what's happening, and it still is hard to rein it in. But all this stuff in my head is actually just piling on top of the real issue, making things worse. Because if your back hurts and you're in a bad mood because you don't want your back to hurt, then that just makes everything harder anyway. And I know it's like hard to have your back hurt and be in a chipper, everything's wonderful mood, right? But at least you can be in a neutral mood and not compound the problem. And like I have had to walk backwards up the trail and away from this mood spiral dozens of times this week. And actually, one of the things that my wife told me, she's like, I see you stepping down from the pedestal of woe is me and oh, dang it. And, it's kind of she's like, I see you stepping away from the bad mood of this unfortunate situation. And that's like the greatest compliment that someone who knows me that well can give me that, like, hey, I see you trying to struggle well. I see you knowing that this isn't useful or good for you, and so I'm not going to do that. And really, that's all you can do, is pull yourself away from the negative thought spiral as many times as you need to. And look, everything is a struggle of some sort. This breath that you just took, it might have been an easy struggle, a struggle that you're going to win, but it is a struggle to breathe, right? At the end, it's going to be a real struggle to breathe. And so everything is a struggle of some sort, and it is up to us. In fact, one of the only things that we can really do is try to struggle well, to try to struggle without all the extra context and woe is meism. And I don't know. Hopefully this is making sense, because it's like, it's kind of like, oh, my back hurts. Great. It's also Thursday. Both of those things are facts that don't need any additional context. It's not helpful to say my back hurts and I don't want it to hurt because I've done so much work that it shouldn't hurt anymore, right? That's useless. My back hurts is the only valuable part of that sentence, because now I have defined the problem and I can go about changing it, right? There's nothing to be gained by my back hurts and I don't want it to, right? My back hurts and I have a lot of work to do. Nothing. It's all useless. And so, I don't know. I just want to tell myself, and I want to tell you, to struggle well. Struggle to climb up the hill. Struggle not to get knocked back down the hill. Struggle to have the courage to keep climbing when you do get knocked down. Struggle to keep from why meing everything. Struggle well. Like, struggle to struggle without context. That's what I mean. And like, there's some ninja level of this where someone is actively trying to thwart you and you're just like, yeah, that's what they're doing right now. I'm struggling well. I'm not going to worry about that. I can't control it, right? I think most of the rest of us have to struggle to just keep our thoughts from doing us harm. And that's where most of the work is. And this is another sidebar. I'm all about sidebars today. Ellen Langer, Helen or Ellen? I've mentioned her recently. She was on the Rich Roll podcast, and she's done all these experiments about how much your attitude and your mindset and your expectation of a certain result affect the outcome. And so if you think if you're woe is meing yourself and, oh my gosh, my back's going to be messed up forever, then it's likely going to be messed up for longer than if you think my back is hurt and it's going to be healed. That just the thought of my back is going to heal makes it easier for you to heal faster. And it's just kind of insane, but of course your thoughts have energy and power. So forget the contextualizing. The sun rises, start rolling that stone up the hill. The sun rises again tomorrow, do it again, struggle well. I think that it's not more complex than that. Struggle without the context, and that is a path to enjoying life as much as possible. Okay. That is it for the week. There's a couple of good, there's always a reward for reading to the end of the newsletter. I don't know if you know that, but at the top of the newsletter, there's a read time link that is just an interesting video that I found. And at the bottom of the newsletter is a reward for reading the newsletter. And it's typically another interesting video. And they're both really good this week. But the dad joke of the week: what do you call a pig that practices karate? I bet you know. It's a pork chop. Okay, that one was kind of bad. And if you think you can do better, you should log on to members.4kweeks.com and submit. You have to create an account, but it's free. And submit a dad joke to our dad joke thread. And, there's a whole bunch of other stuff there too. That is it. I hope you have a spectacular week. I hope you're kind to yourself. I hope you're kind to even the voice in your head that is not being kind to you. I hope you're kind to the teller at the bank and the checker at the grocery store, and to that person spewing things that you can't possibly believe in. I hope you're kind to them too. Have a wonderful week. That's it.